Welcome back from the break, back to Perspective, the action-packed youth debate show. Today we have a quarter-final round and we are in our second segment of the show now, which is the debating round. So what's going to happen, as I previously mentioned very shortly before break, is we're going to have both teams actually going to be going head-to-head now. We're going to have one team making their opening point and we're going to see how the other team respond, and we're going to go back and forth. So before the break, I had a quick chat with the judges and they said that they were pretty impressed with the quality of the speeches. So I'm sure that they're expecting the quality of the points and statistics coming up in the debate to match the speeches. Okay, so without further ado, let's head on over into it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask Team Nexus, who today are debating for euthanasia. I'm going to ask one of you guys to give us your starting point or starting argument, and I'm going to ask arguably the best to respond. So over to you guys.
Is death a bad thing?
Use the microphone.
Is death a bad thing?
Okay, is death a bad thing? I would arguably the best. Would you like to respond?
Can we have 1 minute, please?
Okay. So, I mean, right from the start, we've had a very tough question from Zayn of Team Nexus. Is death a bad thing? A question even the judges couldn't answer themselves. So, they've put arguably the best in quite a spot here, but I think they've got a response. And it looks like Jayshan's going to be responding.
Death is not necessarily a bad thing, but an unwanted death is a bad thing. We argue this because allowing euthanasia leads to less good care for the terminally ill. There's a percentage of terminally ill people who do not want to die. There are families that they know that the suffering will continue for. Once they die, people who miss them will suffer. Allowing euthanasia means that doctors will work less hard on making sure that these people stay alive, because there's the other option of just letting them die. This undermines the commitment of doctors and nurses to saving lives, which ultimately means that the percentage of people who do think that death is a bad thing, who have the right to believe that death is a bad thing, are the ones that suffer. And that's a large majority of people, because I know for most people in this room, you'd prefer to stay alive today, and most days. Furthermore, allowing euthanasia will discourage the search for new cures and treatments for the terminally ill. You have diseases such as cancer, which some people seem to believe is incurable as of yet. If you have the option for euthanasia, it makes the research process a lot slower, because the alternative to finding a cure is to just allow people to euthanize themselves. So therefore, we answer your question by saying death is not necessarily a bad thing, but to most people at a point in their lives, it's not what they want. So in that sense, it is.
Okay, thank you very much, Jayshan. A very strong response. So, death isn't necessarily a bad thing, but an unwanted death is, and an unwanted death can have repercussions leading to other things which are not necessarily good things. So, can Team Nexus respond?
I understand your main concern is basically involuntary euthanasia. Now, if we actually legalise it, we can install regulations that can control who wants euthanasia and who doesn't, and who gets it. Also, you think that people stop looking for cures if euthanasia is the easy way out. I don't think there will be any point in the human race where we will completely give up on a disease and stop looking. We will always look for the answer.
Okay, thank you very much, Basuma. I'll give you the best. Would you have a response for that? Anush?
Well, you're talking about involuntary euthanasia, where you're basically saying that people would have much more of a say if they want to die, right? So many people who are in the state in which they do want to die and which is valid for, they're unable to make that decision for themselves. Quite a lot of mentally ill people who are not in the right state of minds to make decisions that big might make the wrong decision and hence end their lives. And this, as Jayshan said earlier, could lead to the suffering of many other people.
Okay, thank you very much, Anush. So, as Anush said, perhaps someone who's not in the right state of mind to give correct decision, or maybe someone who can't even speak, who decides for them? I mean, is it right? Because you might never know their true choices.
Okay, so I've got a stat for this that proves that euthanasia, because of the control on it, it actually saves lives. So I think my colleagues already said it, but in the New England Journal of Medicine, it found that 0.4% of procedures were without permission after euthanasia was legalized. But before it was legalized, it was 0.8. So the amount of involuntary euthanasia actually decreased after we legalized it, because people are so controlling of it. Whereas if we don't have it legalized, we believe that it doesn't exist, so it happens without us knowing.
I'll give you the best. Can I get a response for that? And then we'll move on to the next string of debate. So a very good response from Masuma. And now we have Team Arguably the Best discussing to come up with a response. And I think Inaya is going to be giving that response.
There is no right to be killed, and there are real dangers of slippery slopes. Opening the doors to voluntary euthanasia could lead to non-voluntary and involuntary euthanasia by giving doctors the power to decide when a patient's life is not worth living. In the Netherlands in 1990, around 1,000 patients were killed without their request.
Okay, so I think we've started the new string of debate there. Legalizing euthanasia can lead on to a very slippery slope in which people high up can start deciding whose lives are worth saving and whose are not.
There's already a system in place to allow patients to die in the UK. For example, people are dying in the hospitals, so they are given a form to die or be resuscitated. So technically this is a euthanasia. So by legalizing euthanasia, there is no difference.
Okay, arguably the best. Jayshan, perhaps you'd like to respond.
I think you're referring to palliative care, which is not euthanasia, because the difference is that in palliative care you have no option to extend your life or to reduce your life, so the doctors will keep you going for as long as normally possible. This is what we believe to be the best alternative to euthanasia in regards to that.
I'm not sure you'd like to add on, sure.
Yeah, your main argument would be the fact that people are like extreme pain, whereas people in palliative care are given doses of morphine and other pain relief, which effectively terminates all the pain and suffering. So what would you have to say about that?
Okay, so the whole idea of pain and people living in pain can be, it can be removed through the use of palliative care.
So you're talking about palliative care now. In the Netherlands, 86% of cases where euthanasia occurred was actually a week before they died. So you think palliative care is a last resort, but then euthanasia is also a last resort. You're not really extending their life, you're not really cutting their life, because it's only a few days, and those few days are basically pain. You're talking about how they can live on morphine and treatment to stop the pain. However, to reach a stage where you want to die, that mentally affects you so deeply, and all these side effects caused by these drugs, surely they would just prefer, because the mental pain that you have where you want to die is just the worst thing you could possibly face. We wouldn't be able to imagine it.
If I'd like to
Sure.
concur. Many famous people have been in that exact same situation. People like Owen Wilson, Eminem, they were once in the state of mind where they were absolutely sure they wanted to end their lives, and through consolation and after they were talked out of it, they went on to great careers. And for example, Stephen Hawking is one of the most world-renowned physicists today, and the disease that he has is motor neuron disease, and it is so severe that many people in his situation would be could possibly want to be euthanized. So however, they didn't, and they led very successful lives. So what do you say?
Okay, I'm going to end that string of debate there. Thank you very much, Anush, for closing it off in very powerful fashion. Now I'm going to move over to Team Nexus. I'm going to ask you guys to yet again give another one of your opening arguments. I'm going to see if this time maybe Anush can respond again.
Millions of pounds are spent trying to save terminally ill patients. Many of these people may want to be euthanized. Surely we should legalize this and divert the money elsewhere.
Okay, so getting economic factors in here now.
What is the cost of a human life? How much should you pay to keep a person alive? I would know that if it was my family member, or if it was myself, I'd love to believe that my loved ones was paying as much as it could be to keep me alive. And I'm pretty sure most people would say that about the ones that are close to them. When it comes to a matter of life and death, I don't really think economic factors should hold that much of a purpose, because this is something that is on a different level. So while we understand that it is costly to continue care for people, we believe that is something that is necessary, because you can't put a value on human life, because once you start doing that, it goes completely out of control.
Oh, and I would like to add on.
It's expensive to keep a patient in the hospital, so family might be inclined to euthanize the patients. This means that if euthanasia was allowed, people could be killed for reasons other than for relief purely.
Okay, so the economic factor takes away from the idea that you're killing someone because they're feeling pain and starts suggesting that maybe some people are being killed for money. Can you really put a price on a human life?
By diverting this money elsewhere, we can save even more lives than just none, as terminally ill patients always die, euthanized or not. The only difference is you die with dignity and you do not die in pain. Plus you save more lives, like people who are poor and cannot afford cures. But by giving this money to them, they can afford it and save their lives.
Anush, would you like to respond to that?
You said that 86% of patients were euthanized only days before they were actually supposed to die. So you're saying that it will save millions of pounds. However, if they're only euthanized a couple of days before when they were actually meant to die, how is that any different? And plus, the actual injections cost a lot of money, as they are very rare chemicals to come across. So it's effectively not saving much money, and it could also be spending more money for the NHS.
Assume, would you like to respond?
There's loads of terminally ill patients, want euthanasia. Also, even though it is just a few days or maybe a week cut off from their life, that is still a lot of money, healthcare, and keeping someone on that bed where literally a machine is controlling their life, that is actually worth a lot of money, and it does actually add up to millions of pounds. The injections, I think, considering you guys were saying that money shouldn't be, added into this, ending someone's pain using money, that's kind of hypocritical.
Jason, sure, go ahead.
I think there's a big difference between what we're talking about and what's been believed. There's palliative care and then there's being on life support. Obviously life support is something that is controlled by a machine, and that will inevitably cost a lot of money to keep a person running on. Even still, I'd go as far as arguing that life support is still something that if a patient wants it and if a patient's family wants it, there's no harm in it. They're always given the option to cut that off. But in terms of the debate that we're doing here, we've been arguing against euthanasia as a whole. So we're talking about how palliative care is the alternative. So we believe that if a patient wants to die, they can do that naturally. There's no need to euthanize early. So with palliative care, we've discussed it many times, you're neither extending nor shortening their lifespan. But with this, we've talked about pain, we've talked about money. The injections, we've said, do cost money. That's not a real focus for us. But what we do focus on is the fact that every minute counts. Every minute that you get to spend in this world counts, because you can do something with that, as we've seen from famous examples. Especially when it comes to close ones and family members, people would love to see them live longer, just so they get that extra time with them.
Okay, thank you very much, Jayshan. And can I ask Team Nexus to give one final response before we perhaps move on? So we've seen a very, very powerful response from Jayshan there, and I think I'm struggling to catch my breath here because we've really been going back and forth, and the quality of the arguments that we're seeing are very good. So Team Nexus, have you guys got a response?
Yes, life is a valuable thing. So why die a painful death? It's a part of life. Why not die a peaceful death?
Why not die a peaceful death? I think I'll call an end to that string of debate there. Thank you very much, Naima, for that. That's going to bring us to the end of the second segment of today's show. So yet again, I think the judges will agree with me that we can see that it's a higher level than the previous round. So this is very good. We've got two very, very good teams here today on a very controversial topic. So after the break, we're going to be moving on into segment 3, where the judges will be asking the questions, maybe if they have any questions themselves on the topic, or maybe based on what you guys have said specifically in either your speeches or in the second debate round. So before that, we're going to have a very, very short break. So once again, make sure you stay with us and make sure you're back ready for the final segment of today's show.